We've also got with us Paul Senior from Keepmoat Group. He's a director at Keepmoat. He's also involved in social enterprise, and they've been involved in a number of community and housing regeneration projects. Paul, what's your thoughts about how do we deliver them more sustainably, and how do we deal with energy in particular and distributed energy networks?
I think, thanks very much, Nigel. I think in terms of energy, it forms one small part of that overall sustainability umbrella. When we sat down doing our business plan at the beginning of the year, we said, who's got money? I think pension funds were probably number one, Premiership football clubs were number two, and then energy companies probably were third, you know, and it's still very, very much similar to that at this moment in time. So what we've done over the last probably 6 or 9 months, we've embraced the energy companies like we've never done before. You know, we're community regeneration specialists, and so we do a lot of new build, we do a lot of regeneration, refurbishment work, and we come across the utilities in various guises within that work. But we've started to look at them in a total different way now. They can either be partners, they could be competitors. But the important thing is that we need to engage with them. And we've started doing that in a big way. And I think the funding that they've certainly got now, and they've certainly got to expend, and CESP is an ideal example of that, the 350 million that they've got to expend before the end of next year. It's important to understand what it is and how it needs to be spent and how we can spend it for them. Because there has been a big issue. You know, most of the major six have come to us and said, right, you work in these regeneration areas, can you spend this obligation for us? And you'd think, well, it's dead easy to spend 350 million, and it ain't quite as easy as that, to be honest. So there are inherent issues within the spend, within the financing. Feed-in tariffs is another one where we're working very closely with the energy companies. You know, at this moment in time, we've got containerfuls of PVs coming over the channel from Rotterdam. You know, I would have never thought we'd be doing that 12 months ago, you know, but it's here now. And therefore, we need to be working with the energy companies, and they're a key player. Because if we are overloading their system, and I know it's happening in the LEP Leeds City Region area, it's happening right across the country. So again, it's key to have those lines of communication. And, you know, everyone's going PV mad at the moment. You know, we're fitting as a group tens of thousands, and it's a big rush. There's a big cliff at the end of March next year, and they've all got to be fitted. Well, they haven't all got to be fitted for them because, all right, it will reduce the feed-in tariff, but they'll still be, and it's a little bit like decent homes in that respect. There was a cliff at the end of 2010. Everything's got to be done. I think people need to be mindful that, and we've been through it, we're no different to anyone else. We've been through a redundancy program, and what we're trying to do is upskill people now to reflect what's going to be going off in the sustainability and the energy markets. And I just noted a couple down. Our resident liaison officers, for example, in conjunction with the Energy Saving Trust, we're upskilling those now to be energy advisors. So when they go in the houses, they can advise on energy use. Our site staff now being reskilled as surveyors. Our tradesmen are being instilled as PV suppliers. And we are working very, very closely with the energy companies. We're doing ground source heat pump schemes. Strategically, we made the decision 2 years ago that we want to do a lot of these renewable technologies ourselves. And that's why we got into bed with the energy companies very early on, because whilst they might become a competitor, it's no different to any of the other works that we do. We've got to work together. And that is the essence of everything going forward. You know, money is tight, I said it at the beginning. It's important that we've got the people and we talk to people and we collaborate. I think that's got to run through the whole of the, well, whether it's the Leeds City region, whether any region that we work in. And we work right across the breadth of the country now. But it's important that we do engage, not least of all with the Green Deal that's kicking in October next year. I went to a launch of a future, they call it a Future Fit, that we've been working very closely with one of the RSLs. It was down in London last week. And there's some major issues there going forward. Not least of all the financial black hole, again, where the energy companies perhaps can come in and help to plug some of that. And not least of all with the communication. I've touched on communication 2 or 3 times. Only 4% of this RLL's tenants wanted the work doing, and it was for nothing. And it's going to save them money, but only 4% wanted it doing. So again, in conjunction with the energy companies, in conjunction with the RSLs, in conjunction with everyone involved in the infrastructure with regards to housing, you know, it's important that we get that message across.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
We've also heard this morning a lot about broadband and the importance of broadband in our economic future. We're fortunate to have with us here Robert Ling. Robert's from Broadband Delivery UK. What's the challenge in delivering super-fast broadband across the city region, Robert?
I think there's several challenges in delivering super-fast broadband across somewhere like the Leeds City region. I think our main priority is to actually understand the importance of super-fast broadband into the work that we do today, and I think it's probably best summed up by the quote by Roy O'Meara, who was the past president of the Institute of the Future, who said, "We tend to overestimate the effect of technology in the short term and then underestimate the effect in the long run." And I think that's probably best summed up by going back 5 years and thinking what the economic landscape looked like then, and now fast forward 5 years and just see what impacts that's had. And I think you only need to think about some of the big brand names who've probably struggled and, you know, ultimately could disappear. Woolworths is one, HMV has had several struggles, EMI. These are all businesses that I don't think you would particularly connect with a broadband infrastructure, yet they've all struggled due to the impact of this new technology. That pace of change isn't slowing. Bandwidth demands are increasing, new business models are emerging, and where those new business models emerge, there's opportunities for growth. And I think that's the challenge that we need to face head on. In looking specifically at Leeds City region, how we deliver it to the whole area is the question that broadband delivery has for the whole country. And we believe it will be solved only by a public-private partnership. We must create the right environment and the right business case to deliver the network that we need for today and for the next 10 years. The decisions we make now will affect businesses in this area for the next 15, 20 years. There's a stark reality we will need capital for these projects. We announced several weeks ago what the allocation for Leeds City region was, and from our work and modelling, we estimate that around 20% of your area will not be served by superfast broadband. So we've made a commitment of £6 million to this area. That is going to require match, both from the public sector and the private sector. But I think along with that capital match, we need to look at how we exploit that network, because it's the exploitation that will deliver that growth. And that's looking at how we work with businesses to make sure they exploit it to its full potential, but also citizens. There's no point leaving people behind. And I think one of the comments that was made at the breakfast seminar this morning was 20% of people in the Leeds City region are not online. I mean, in one aspect, that's 20% of your customers who can't buy from you digitally. And if you are looking at a digital delivery, can you afford to miss out 20% of your customers? That could also relate to 15 to 20% of businesses who are not looking how they can reduce costs by using digital technologies. If Leeds City region feels that digital industries are going to be part of its backbone of growth, well, we've got to make sure that there's businesses out there who will buy from them. And if there isn't, that's a massive growth opportunity missed.
Thank you, Robert. I'm sure that Alan's envious about some of the technology companies like Apple. If they've got more cash in the bank than the US government, they are certainly the future. John, you've had a session this morning on transport. We've heard about how important it is. I think it's very important to accelerating economic growth. What we really need is delivery, isn't it? Is that what it's about?
Yes, it is. I think at the risk of repeating some of the points I made this morning for those who were in the audience, it's not easy to get around the region often, depending on the time of day. It's not desperately easy to get in and out of it and then to move things around. And from an aviation point of view, I'll give you an example of what happens. If you go to a business and sit in their boardroom in Spain and they're thinking about building their product here in the UK, the first thing that will come up on the agenda is, can we get there? And then the second thing is, when we get there, have we got the right infrastructure in place to move our products around? Have we got the right greenfield sites or brownfield sites? Have we got the right skills, the right workforce, et cetera, et cetera? And all the things that we're talking about during this conference come together and link together. But for an inward investor thinking about building their product in our region, the ability to get through, in and around and to it, is absolutely key. And if they come into the region and then find that the answer is that there's lots of ticks in boxes about parts of that agenda, but that actually their lorries or other means of transport can't get around because they're jammed up in traffic, then these things do have a profound effect, and we don't actually see that because it's taking place somewhere else, in some other room behind closed doors. And I think actually there is an appetite and in fact a demand for the transport agenda to be significantly accelerated, as you mentioned, Nigel. I think key to that is planning. We need to make sure that we've got a joined up citywide region approach to that, and that we have to take some really hard decisions, not just about what we're going to do, but what we're not going to do, and how quickly we're going to be able to do it and energize the political and planning framework and the business and private enterprise framework to be able to make that happen. It is creating that framework, I think, is a key priority for the LEP and how we move that forward. And I made the point this morning, and I don't apologize for making it again, is that transport in strategy is often beset by long time horizons. For perfectly understandable reasons, it's necessary to take a view of decades and decades ahead. But there are things that we can do in the region to open up and connect existing infrastructure and to enable a faster rate of improvement so that our people in the region can get around and our businesses can move around more effectively and in a more sustained way than is currently the case. And I'll give the one example of joining up the rail infrastructure and making sure that we can connect all our major centres in the city region together in an effective way, which many of us who travelled to other parts of Europe would recognise, for example, as being just part of the furniture. That's what they have. And we are behind in that respect, and I think we have to prioritise, we have to look for some of the short-term wins while setting that within a longer-term framework which makes cohesive and coherent sense.
John, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's absolutely, we heard from Andrew Carter from Central Cities, the importance of transport in delivering agglomeration and the ability for businesses to work together and people to find access jobs and businesses to access labour. So I think it's absolutely critical and it'd be very high on certainly on my priorities.